Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for the launch of Rochelle Strauss's book, The Global Ocean. And this is an association. My name is Jennifer, and I am from the Canadian Geographic Education. And I have a copy of this lovely book by Rochelle, and I've been reading it over and over, and it's a beautiful book with beautiful illustrations. And we're really looking forward to hearing a little bit more about it today. So we're going to have lots of time for questions. So if there's any teachers joining us in the chat, please make sure you ask your questions throughout. We'll get to almost everybody's questions if we can throughout the presentation. So if you're on YouTube or you're on Facebook joining us, please write in those questions and Rochelle will be happy to answer those. So I'd like to start off by introducing Rochelle. She is a best-selling children's book author whose new book, The Global Ocean, is a follow-up to her phenomenally successful book, One Well, The Story of Water on Earth, which has sold more than 400,000 copies around the world and is a UN Sustainable Development Goals book club pick. Now that's a pretty big deal. So all of her books, including Tree of Life, are found in the Citizen Kid collection of books on global issues from award-winning publisher Kids Can Press, who's presenting with us today. So through her work, Rochelle combines her love of nature and passion for stories to teach children about the wonders of the natural world. She lives with her family in Toronto, Ontario. Welcome, Rochelle.
Hello, everyone, and thank you, Jennifer. It's such a pleasure to be here today. Greetings from wherever you are across this great country. I want to thank Jennifer and Canadian Geographic and Kids Can for having me here today. I'm so excited to be here. Chatting with students and classes is one of the best things about being a children's writer. I love connecting, even if it's just virtual. I know we'll get a chance to talk to each other a little bit later. But to be here today is such an honor, and it is one of my favorite things. And of course, I'm excited to talk to you today about my new book, The Global Ocean. And I'm not going to lie, I am a little bit nervous today. It's been a long, long time since I've been able to do a school presentation, and this is the first school presentation that I'm doing for The Global Ocean. So today's a pretty extra special day for me, and I'm so glad to be sharing it with you today as well. Before we start, I wanted to share that I'm coming to you from Toronto, which is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat people, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. Toronto is covered by Treaty 13, signed with the Mississaugas of the Credit. As an educator and a writer, I make the commitment to continue to learn and act for equity. So buckle up and let's get started. So who am I? Well, you know my name. My name is Rochelle. I have two good friends here with me today, Ducky 1 and Ducky 2. And we'll learn more about the ducks in a moment. But they've joined me, at least Ducky 1 has joined me for the duration of the book since I first started researching the book. And you'll know why soon. I'm a writer and an educator, and I'm insanely curious and I love to learn. I have worked at almost every major tourist attraction in Toronto, including the Zoo, the Royal Ontario Museum, the CN Tower, the Art Gallery of Ontario, and the Ontario Science Centre. And through my work, I've had the chance to meet some incredibly smart people, researchers and scientists who have inspired me and taught me so much, especially about nature and the environment. I'm also an explorer. I love to be outside, hiking through natural spaces, spotting different plants and animals, and discovering new things about the world around me. My eyes and my ears are always open. I'm waiting for something new or unexpected to happen, or connecting with old friends like the birds who visit my backyard feeder every migration season. And because I'm a storyteller, I love sharing stories about what I see, discover, and learn. I'm passionate about protecting the planet. As an author, I want to inspire readers to learn more and discover more about the Earth and the incredible species who call this planet home. And I think I'm going to ask Jennifer right now if you could share the screen. That would be great. Thank you. My goal is to change the world one book at a time. So far, I've written 3 books. Tree of Life, The Incredible Biodiversity of Life on Earth, One Well, The Story of Water on Earth, and of course, my newest book, The Global Ocean. Maybe you've read one or two of them or seen them in your library. I hope so, and I hope after this presentation you might go check them out. I'm also a wee bit obsessed about the ocean. Whenever I can, I want to be by the ocean, combing the shores and looking for whales and dolphins, or snorkeling to explore the incredible life beneath the waves. In the ocean, I love cetaceans, which are whales and dolphins best of all. But I also love cephalopods. And you might not know what a cephalopod is, but it's basically octopus and squid. I think they're such amazing creatures, and I've been learning so much about them lately. I also love sharks and rays, and I love these crazy wee sea slugs called nudibranchs. They are the most interesting creatures, I think, in the ocean, and certainly one of the most colorful. And if you have some time, I encourage you to learn more about them as well. There's really not much that I don't like about the ocean, though. I just love everything. Every time I pick up a new book or scroll through one of my favorite websites, which is the Monterey Bay Aquarium and the research they do, I learn new things and I discover new species. And I've wanted to tell the story about the ocean for a very long time, but there's so many stories to tell, I wasn't sure where to start. And then one day, I came across a story that set the wheels, or rather, the waves, in motion. Suddenly, I knew the story I wanted to tell, the story I needed to tell. And it all started with, I bet you can guess, a duck. And that's why the ducks follow me around wherever I go at all my presentations. So when I say it all started with a duck, it actually started with about 28,000 rubber ducks. I was doing my research about the ocean and came across the story of a container ship called the Ever Laurel. As the ship was sailing from Hong Kong to Washington, a storm washed one of its containers to sea. The container wasn't latched properly, so it sprung open, and 28,000 rubber ducks and some other bath toys escaped into the ocean. Over the next 20 years, the ducks were found washed ashore all over the world. They were even found frozen in the Arctic ice. So think about that for a moment. Maybe you'll see where the story's going. The ship was in the Pacific Ocean, but the ducks were found all over the world, on beaches all around the world. This accidental spill turned into a real-life science experiment. Tracking the ducks allowed scientists to test and prove their theories about the global ocean and about ocean currents. And the ducks also became real-life example to remind us that there is just one ocean. So when they landed or when they fell into the ocean in the Pacific and they started landing on shorelines across the world, it reminds us that the ocean is really just one big ocean. It's a connection of 5 oceans, but it's really just one big ocean. And that's how my story about the global ocean got started. So I'm going to read from you from the very first page of the book, just to get you started, and so you have a sense of where we're going to go today. And the first section is called Earth's Beating Heart. What if Earth had a beating heart that powered everything on the planet? In a way, the global ocean is like Earth's heart. When you look on a map of the world, you see 5 great oceans: the Atlantic Ocean, the Pacific Ocean, the Indian Ocean, the Arctic Ocean, and the Southern Ocean, which is also called the Antarctic Ocean. But what you may not realize is that these oceans are all linked by a system of water that moves between them. So these 5 oceans are actually connected to form one single circulating ocean, the global ocean. This global ocean is Earth's most important feature. It moves heat, oxygen, and nutrients around the planet, supporting all life on Earth, much like your heart pumps blood through your body to move oxygen and nutrients. It is also home to more species and more habitats than anywhere else on the planet. Its water shapes Earth's climate and influences its weather. The global ocean stores carbon dioxide from the atmosphere and supplies oxygen for us to breathe. It's also a source of food for many of Earth's inhabitants living in the ocean and on land. And for humans, the global ocean provides food, energy, minerals, and transportation, as well as a place to play, explore, and enjoy. A healthy global ocean is what keeps the planet flourishing and sustains all life on Earth, just like the beat of your heart keeps you alive and well. But the global ocean is in trouble. And today we're going to explore a little bit more about what's affecting the global ocean and what we can do to help it, and what other people are already doing. So what do I love about the global ocean? The global ocean has some of the highest peaks and deepest valleys and longest mountain chains found anywhere in the earth. In fact, at its deepest point, you could put Mount Everest in the global ocean and it would still be entirely submerged. The global ocean is home to the richest diversity of species on Earth. There are more different types of species in the ocean than anywhere else on the planet. It's also home to the greatest number of animals and plants on the planet. 50% of all life on Earth lives in the ocean, but scientists estimate that could be as much as 80%. So imagine if 80% of all life on Earth actually lives in the ocean becomes a very important habitat. And there are many, many ocean habitats. In fact, there are more ocean habitats or ocean-related habitats than there are habitats on land. And these ocean habitats include kelp forests, coral reefs, mangrove forests, seagrass shores, and intertidal zones where the ocean meets land, and deep sea vents and the deep, deep sea valleys. And there's so many more. I could go on forever about all the different types of habitats. And you may not know this, but the global ocean holds 90% of all the water on Earth. And that water is always on the move through two different ways. First of all, the global ocean is part of the water cycle. And that means that water in the global ocean, as the sun beats down on it, the water heats up and evaporates. It goes up into the sky as steam or water vapor. And as it cools, it turns back into water drops or raindrops, and it falls back down to the earth and refills the lakes and the streams. And those lakes and streams all flow back to the ocean. And this is a constant cycle. You may have learned about the water cycle in school already. But the ocean is also on the move through currents. And these water currents are formed by a combination of the wind, the gravity, and even the rotation of the earth. And there's several different types of currents across the global ocean. There's the currents that flow across the surface. Then there's currents that flow deep beneath the ocean surface. And then there's currents that flow from the surface to the depths and from the depths back up to the surface again. These currents are really, really important because as they move nutrients from one ocean basin to another. But they also help control our weather. The currents from the tropics, where it's warm, work their way to the poles. And the currents from the poles bring colder water down to the center, towards the tropics. And this is what helps control the weather patterns and rainfall patterns all across the earth. The global ocean is Earth's most important feature, but human activities are having an impact on the ocean. And we're going to learn a little bit more about the impacts and some amazing stories about what people are doing and some things that even you can do, because everybody can protect the global ocean. So the first thing I wanted to talk about is climate change. We hear a lot about climate change. It is a huge issue. And climate change is no less important for the ocean than it is for people living on land, because the global ocean and the climate are completely interconnected. The global ocean controls climate and weather. We just talked about that with the currents. And climate change impacts the ocean. The two are inseparable. So remember how I said the currents move warm water from the tropics to the poles and cold water from the poles to the tropics? Well, this helps shapes the weather and rainfall patterns. But what you might not realize is that the ocean also absorbs heat and carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. So when we talk about climate change and we talk about more CO2 in the atmosphere and the temperature getting hotter, this impacts the ocean because the ocean actually absorbs the heat from the atmosphere and absorbs the CO2. So the warmer the Earth gets, the warmer the ocean is going to get. And changing ocean temperatures can cause more extreme weather. So even though the ocean right now controls rainfall patterns and controls weather, imagine if it gets warmer, those storms could get harsher and more serious. Warmer water also takes up more space. It expands, and that could lead to more flooding along the shorelines. And of course, warmer water affects the plants and animals in the water because they're accustomed to a certain temperature. And as the water gets warmer, it's not healthy or safe for them, and they may not be able to move to places with cooler temperatures. It's also important to remember that the ocean absorbs that carbon dioxide. So the more carbon dioxide there is in the atmosphere, the more the ocean is going to absorb. And more carbon dioxide in the atmosphere could actually change the chemical makeup of the water. That might make the water more acidic. Now, you and I going for a swim in the ocean would probably never notice a more acidic ocean, but you can bet the plants and animals will. They've adapted to certain levels of CO2 and salt and other chemicals in the water. And if we change the balance, it will affect plants and animals and it will harm habitats. So whenever we talk about climate change, the global ocean has to be part of that conversation, always. Pollution is another huge issue affecting the health of the global ocean. Every year, billions of kilograms of trash ends up in the ocean. This can be garbage that's washed off from the city streets. It can be abandoned fishing gear called ghost gear. Sometimes it's chemicals or oil spill. Believe it or not, even light and noise pollution can have an impact on the health of the global ocean. Pollution in all its forms harms habitats and marine species. But you know what the issue is that we're having the biggest problem with. And I bet you can all say it out loud right now. Even if I can't hear you, I know you are all saying plastic. In fact, 80% of the trash found in the global ocean is probably plastic. And if you're ever wondering why, I want you to take a moment right now and look around. If you're at home, look around your house. If you're in the classroom, look around your classroom right now. No matter where you are, I bet you can spot dozens of things made out of plastic. So much of what we have has plastic in it. It's in everything. And all this plastic is finding its way into the ocean. Thing about plastic is it never breaks down. It's not compostable, so it won't go away. The sun and the current will break it down into smaller pieces. But unlike organic waste, it won't just disappear into the system. There will always be plastic in the ocean. The pieces just get smaller and smaller and smaller. And of course, there's also really large pieces as well. And what happens? How does this plastic affect the global ocean? Well, the plastic will affect habitats. It can destroy habitats. Animals often get tangled up in it, and they can also choke on it. And many animals will mistake plastic for food. So as the plastic breaks down into smaller pieces, it can look like fish eggs, which many animals like to eat. And a plastic bag looks like a yummy jellyfish to sea turtles. And I know it might be hard for you to believe, but many years ago, I was at the Vancouver Aquarium, and they had an exhibit where they actually had a tank that showed the currents. And they put a clear plastic bag in there and a jellyfish in a tank beside it. And the two were almost identical. So if I had trouble telling a jellyfish from a plastic bag, you know that the turtles are too. And since plastic can't be digested, animals keep eating it until they feel full, but they haven't actually eaten food. So they feel like they're full and they get no nutrients from the plastic. And then they potentially end up starving because the plastic in their system isn't being digested and it's making them think they're full. And of course, we all know that if smaller fish are poisoned by plastic, as the animals in the food chain eat those fish, and then eat the subsequent animals, or the subsequent animals get eaten, that plastic and that poison is working its way up the food chain. But plastic is definitely an issue we can solve. There's also nearly 8 billion people on the planet. And I don't know if you know this, but fish is the primary source of food for nearly 1/3 of all the people. So to keep up with the demand, we are taking more and more fish from the global ocean, and we're taking it faster than ever before. It's not just the number of fish we're taking that's the problem, or how quickly we're taking it. It's also the way we fish. Some fishing practices drag large scoops across the bottom of the ocean, destroying ocean habitats. And every year, billions of unwanted marine species are accidentally caught in fishing nets. This is called bycatch. And some of the bycatch, you'll be surprised to know, isn't just unintended fish. It could also be sharks and whales, turtles, and even birds. Thankfully, scientists, researchers, and innovators are developing new ways and better fishing practices. And I'm going to tell you a story about one of them in a moment. Humans are also changing the landscape along the global ocean's shores. We're building along shorelines and destroying habitats like mangrove forests and seagrass beds and wetlands. And remember, these are also carbon sinks. So the mangrove forests and seagrass beds and wetlands all absorb carbon from the atmosphere as well. So if we're destroying them to build houses or shopping malls, we're also destroying some of the things that would protect us from climate change. But these shorelines also, these habitats along the shoreline, also protect us by being barriers. So they help prevent flooding. So they'll block out flooding from the ocean. And on the flip side, they also help protect pollution from entering the ocean. They provide a little bit of a buffer zone. So destroying coastal shorelines is also harmful to the global ocean. So you see, the global ocean is so much more than the water you can see. It is the beating heart that supports all life on Earth. It's the air we breathe, the climate we live in, and home to the richest diversity of species on the planet. And we need to protect the global ocean so that it can continue to support all life on Earth, including us. And I'm here to say, thankfully, there are people all around the world who are stepping up and taking action to protect the global ocean. There are innovators and scientists and researchers and people like you and I making a difference. And I want to tell you some of those good news stories. So there's something called marine protected areas. These are like national parks, but in the ocean. And there's a global goal set that 30% of the ocean will be designated a marine protected area by 2030. That's just 8 years away. It's kind of incredible and exciting. And of course, there's some really great initiatives happening around plastic in the ocean. There's an organization called the Global Ghost Gear Initiative, and it's a bit of a mouthful, I know. But this is a group of individuals and governments and countries and even people in the fishing industry that are removing the plastic they find in the ocean as they come across it. And there's scuba divers involved, there's fishers involved. It's pretty incredible. They take all this plastic to shore, and then the plastic gets reused and turned into running shoes and skateboards and sunglasses. It would be better if we used less plastic for sure, but at least this is one creative way of getting the plastic out of the ocean and finding a way to reuse it. There's also an organization called Ocean Conservancy International, and every year it hosts a global shoreline cleanup in September. Millions of people from around the world, including in Canada, volunteer to pick up litter from their local beaches, anywhere where water meets shore. Millions of kilograms of plastic and other garbage are collected each year, and that means they're not going into the ocean. And you can be part of that. Check it out for next September, perhaps. There are also many organizations that are working on habitat restoration. And there's one group in the UK, in the United Kingdom, that's actually taking action to replant seagrass beds. And I talked about the innovators and the designers and the inventors. Well, there's a lot going on in the fishing industry that's pretty exciting. There's a new device that they're trying out that can emit sounds that would scare away dolphins and whales and keep them away from nets. And there's this device here, which is my favorite one. It's called a TED, and TED stands for Turtle Extruder Device. And what it is turtles will often chase fish into nets and then they get trapped themselves. But the TED has a trap door that the turtle can escape from. The fish remain trapped, but the turtle can escape. So there are incredible things happening around the world to help protect the global ocean. And these are just a few of the ripples of change happening. But more and more actions like these will go a long way. We need to create more ripples. And that's where you come in, because even you have a role to play. It's true. You can reduce or eliminate using plastics. You can say no to single-use plastics. You can walk or bike to school instead of drive or even scoot. You can volunteer at your own shoreline cleanup, and it doesn't even have to be in September. You could do a shoreline cleanup tomorrow. And of course, you can learn more, because the more that we learn, the more we can do to protect it. So I want you to think today about what your wave will be. And for those of you who may be here who have seen a presentation of mine before, I'm going to leave you with a challenge, because we all need to act to protect the Earth's one well. So here's my challenge to you. I want you to think about one thing you can do to protect the global ocean. And not you as a class, you as an individual. One thing. It could be any of the things we've mentioned before. It could be something new and creative. It could be writing a letter to a change maker. It could be participating in a climate change rally. It could be educating your parents or your grandparents or your aunts and your uncles or your friends. Do one thing to protect the global ocean. But here's the catch, because there's always a catch. I want you to tell 2 people. You need to tell them what you're doing and why you're doing it, and then encourage them to take action. So you doing that will get 2 more people protecting the global ocean. And if they do the same thing and take your challenge, they'll tell 2 people, and suddenly we'll have 4 people protecting the global ocean. And if they take the challenge as well, then 8 more people are protecting the global ocean. And if those 8 continue the challenge, that's 16 more people protecting the global ocean. And you see where I'm going with this, don't you? 16 more people will become 32 more people. And 32 more people suddenly becomes 64 people. That's 64 people creating ripples. And those ripples will create a wave. And if you think about it, if all those 2 plus 4 plus 8 plus 16 plus 32 plus 64 people are all doing something to protect the global ocean, why? Because of you. Because you had the courage to do something, to take an action, to do something to protect the global ocean. You started a ripple, and that ripple grew and grew and grew and grew until it became a wave. So if you each do something to protect the global ocean, you will create the ripples, and together those ripples will join with the other ripples, and together we will all create a wave of change. And that's my story about the global ocean. And Jennifer, you can bring me back in now. There I am. And I would love to hear from our audience and learn more about what interests you and what excites you, and try to answer your questions.
That's so great, Rochelle. What a wonderful message, and what a beautiful book. I hope that everybody is able to get a copy of it. We had a comment on Facebook. Jenna said it was a beautiful book with an impactful message. So we're happy to hear that people are enjoying the book. I also know that a lot of classrooms had a cleanup at the end of April. A lot of schools were doing a school cleanup, and I think that we can do things on land to help clean up the ocean as well, right? It doesn't have to be, you don't have to live near the water or by the water.
Absolutely, because all water flows into the ocean. So anywhere where land meets water affects the ocean. And if you live by a stream or a creek, or in Toronto, we live by the Don River, that all helps the ocean. Even if you don't live near water, any kind of cleanup on the land will impact the ocean in a positive way.
Great. Thank you. All right. So we're still waiting on some questions in the chat. So please feel free for those watching to write those questions in. We're happy to take questions. We have lots of time for questions, but I think we'll start by going to our classrooms. So I hope you're all getting ready to go. So I'm going to start with room 28 I have here listed. So room 28, we're going to unmute you and bring you guys up on the screen to ask your question. So make sure you're unmuted there, room 28.
Alrighty, we have a question from Kenzie here.
When did you decide you wanted to write a book? Like, why not a website or like a YouTube channel? Why a book?
That's a great question, Kenzie. I love to write. I love playing with words. And so I've done some work with websites. I've definitely written content and stories on websites, but I like books. I didn't grow up with the internet the way everybody else did today. It joined me later in life. So books are my natural way to go. But I have written for websites and I've written for museums. And why not a YouTube video? Probably because I don't have the technical skills to do that. I could learn, but I don't like to be in front of the screen, funny enough. I rather be in front of people in person, and I rather be playing with words. But great question, Kenzie.
Yeah, wonderful. Sorry, I pulled you guys off a little bit too quickly, but thank you for your question. Was there another question from the class? I'll bring you guys up again.
I have another question.
Perfect, great.
Hi. Did you have any inspiration when you started writing books?
Ooh, I did. I definitely did. So when I was growing up, my mom liked an explorer called Jacques Cousteau. And I grew up with all of his books. So he was a scuba diver, a pioneer in oceanography, and I grew up with all his books and would read them. I'm pretty sure I learned how to read on those books. So I was very inspired by the work that he did. And I just loved reading as a kid. I loved reading all kinds of books. So that was my inspiration. I think that even answers Kenzie's question too, because I love books so much. That was the natural place for me to go. But yeah, I would say Jacques Cousteau was a huge inspiration to me. And I guess that means my mother was a huge inspiration to me as well.
Great. Are there any other questions from the classroom?
We do have one more.
Great. Awesome.
Why did you decide to do it on the ocean instead of land?
Well, that's a good question. I did one book called The Tree of Life, which was about all the species on the planet. And the one well was about water, and the global ocean clearly is about water. I kind of have a thing for water. I do love the ocean best of all. And the truth is, I've been wanting to write a book about the ocean for a very, very, very long time. I had lots of ideas and lots of notes and started and stopped many times. So this one was really important to me because of how much I love the ocean and how concerned I am about the health of the global ocean.
Great. Thank you to our first class. We had a question come in on Facebook from B. They ask, any plans to be on or near the ocean soon?
Thanks, B. What a great question. I try to get to the ocean as much as I can. Of course, with the pandemic the last couple of years, I haven't. And Toronto is somewhat far from the ocean, but I actually do have plans to be by the ocean. I am hoping to go to California to visit my friends at the Monterey Bay Aquarium in July, and plan to park myself on the beach and perhaps not move, because I love that beach best of all. And I am hoping to go out to Vancouver in British Columbia in October, and we'll do plenty of beach combing and wandering there as well. I try to get to the ocean at least once or twice a year. It fills my heart and soothes my soul. So it's definitely a priority to get to when I can.
Great. There definitely is that sort of, they call it what the blue state of mind. Being close to the ocean and water really soothes that soul and soothes that mind for sure.
Definitely.
All right, we're going to go down to our next class there, Williamson Road Public School. So make sure you guys are unmuted. Looks like you're all ready to go, so I'll bring you guys up.
Hello. Which book had the biggest impact on you while you were writing it?
Ooh, that's a great question. It's funny because One Well I wrote so long ago, but that one had a pretty huge impact on me because I learned so much. I think I grew a lot writing One Well. Global Ocean has had a huge impact on me too, because I've gotten to kind of spend a lot of time in the ocean, literally and figuratively, and it is the place that I love to be at the most. So I think I learned a lot on my other two books, but I think I probably learned the most writing the Global Ocean. So I think I would say that one probably is going to have the biggest impact on me.
Great. Was there any other questions from Williamson Road Public School? Let's just check back in with you guys.
When did you start writing your books? Why?
Good question. So I started writing my first book back in 2001, maybe 20 years ago. And I wrote it because I've always wanted to write kids' books, but I used to think I wanted to write picture books. And I wrote a picture book and I submitted it to Kids Can, and it was not accepted. And that's okay. It wasn't a good picture book. But they thought my background was really interesting, and I had done a lot of work in environmental education and working with nature and conservation. And they asked if I'd ever be interested in writing nonfiction. And the truth is I hadn't really thought about nonfiction, but we talked and we came up with the idea for Tree of Life. And I discovered how much I loved writing nonfiction because I get to explore and discover and learn about all the species and spaces I love so much. And instead of just learning about them for myself and boring my friends with all my trivia and facts, I get to write books and stories and inspire people to take action and to learn more and be curious as well. So I think that answered the question. It's been a long time, and that's why, and I hope to keep writing more and more books going forward.
That's great, having that curiosity and that determination. Wonderful. All right, Williamson Road, any other questions from you guys?
Yeah. Hi. I was wondering if you had a favorite book when you were younger.
Ooh, I absolutely did. I actually had a lot of favorite books when I was younger. I loved, and I think it's still out. It's Paddington the Bear. I had a bear stuffy. I still have it. And I really kind of identified with the protagonist who had a really tight connection with her stuffed bear. And so Paddington the Bear was one of my favorites. I loved all the Winnie the Pooh books, of course. Again, maybe we're going back to bears. Maybe I should write a book about bears. As those were two of my favorites. And I also loved Harold and the Purple Crayon because I just loved the creativity of the art with that and the story with that.
Great. Paddington's got a lot of curiosity and a lot of good messages in that one as well. All right, Williamson, did you have one final question for Rochelle?
Hello. Oh, where am I? There we go. Which of the three books that you wrote do you think inspired people the most?
Oh, well, I have to say One Well, I think, has inspired people the most right now because it's been around for a very long time, and it has traveled the world, and it's in some curriculum programs across in the United States. And I still, even though the book is quite been out for quite a while, I still get stories from teachers and students around the world of the work that they've done after reading the book to protect the One Well. So that one, I think, has had the advantage of being one of the older books. So it's had a long time to kind of resonate with people. I hope Global Ocean has the same impact because the global ocean is an issue that we need to address. And it's something that is should be at the front of our minds right now. So I'm hoping the Global Ocean will have the same impact as One Well and inspire a lot of people to take action and protect the global ocean.
That's great, and a great message going into June, where we are going to be focusing on water and oceans, and so definitely take the chance to pick up Rochelle's book. We're going to put her handles on social media in the chat, as well as a link to the book page to be able to purchase her book, any of her books. So please follow Rochelle and find out about more of her books. And I just wanted to give Rochelle one final chance to give you the last word. But before I do that, I want to say thank you so much for joining us today, both people, the classes that are with us on the backstage, but also those joining on Facebook and YouTube. And if you want to know any more about CanJU Education's resources, please visit our website. But Rochelle, you've got the final word.
Oh, thank you. Wow, the final word. What does one say for a final word? I want to thank everybody for coming today. First of all, I want to thank you for being part of the very first Global Ocean presentation. It's a milestone for me, and I was excited to have you all here with me today. I encourage you to keep learning. If something I've said has sparked something in your mind, go investigate, go explore, get out in nature and see what you discover. If it's about the ocean, great. If it's about species specific, great. Learning is the only way that we're going to make change, by understanding the world and understanding how interconnected everything is and how our impact is affecting things and the domino effect of what it's doing. That's how we make change, by learning and then by sharing. And so my final word will be, don't forget my challenge. Take me up on it. And if you want to connect with me on Instagram, I'd love to hear the work that you're doing to protect the global ocean.
Great. Thank you. Have a nice day, everyone. Take care.
Bye, everyone. Happy Ocean Day coming up.